Hello, thanks for listening to the FLP, the Finance Leadership Podcast. It's your fortnightly focus on the latest information and news about the Finance Leadership Programme pathway to your CGMA designation. It's produced by AICPA and CIMA together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. You can find out more at aicpa.org and at cimaglobal.com. My name's Kevin Gormley as usual, and today joined by Will Salvo from Deloitte UK. So we're delighted to have you. If you maybe just tell us your role and what you do at Deloitte, that would be great. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. I work within a group called the Project Controller Group within the consulting arm of Deloitte, and we're a group of qualified and part qualified accountants which help partners and engagement managers manage the financials on their engagement. So things like pricing, budgeting, all the good management accountants type practices, and act as a business partner to those engagement managers and partners as well. My role within that group is I manage the learning and professional development within that team. So I help people get signed up for professional qualifications, figure out what training needs we have within the team, and try and look to fit people's needs around that.
And obviously today, as a listener could probably guess, we're here to talk about how rolling out the Finance Leadership Programme within Deloitte has worked out. And obviously you've been involved in that, Will, and we're keen to get direct feedback about the experiences you and the students have had in starting the FLP and continuing that over the last year. So I guess the first thing logically to ask would be why you thought offering the Finance Leadership Programme was a good idea within the business.
The FLP Financial Leadership Programme in particular is really good for the business because it offers a lot of flexibility both to Deloitte and to the people studying it. So from a Deloitte perspective, FLP allows us to keep really good track of how people are progressing within a professional qualification. Also, CIMA itself is really well recognized professional qualification, and we require everyone within the team to complete CIMA before they progress beyond a certain level. So FLP has allowed us a really good route to achieve that. I suppose from a student's perspective, there's a lot of flexibility. So it's a lot of online learning rather than going out to the classroom. They can also complete the modules at their own pace, which we found has allowed them to complete modules maybe slightly faster than they would do in the traditional CIMA route.
Obviously, completing a professional qualification whilst maintaining a full-time demanding position is no mean feat for anybody. So you've touched on a few things there. The flexibility it affords to the student is really important. And it's a common theme that we've heard from employers and students who have undertaken the programme. That flexibility is one of the key things that's really of huge benefit. But in terms of direct student feedback, now I've in the past dealt with a lot of students on the programme from Deloitte across Ireland and the UK. But what are they telling you themselves? What are the main things that have aided them to progress and I guess made the work-life balance a bit more manageable?
The feedback's been great. So about the actual platform itself, everything's really easy to follow, easy to use. And like I said, from their perspective as well as ours, they can set goals, track their progress against those goals. There's plenty of support if they get stuck with anything. Also, and we've touched on it a couple of times now, the flexibility. So in certain weeks of the month, we tend to get quite busy. So what FLP allows you to do is focus studying to a particular week or a particular day when you're less busy. So it really allows you to, balance work life and study all together, which I think is really important from a student perspective. And that's the feedback that we've had, that it's allowed people studying for CIMA to go at their own pace and balance work life and study commitments.
Yeah, there used to always be this perception that when anyone has undertaken a professional qualification, they have more or less said goodbye to 3 to 4 years of their life. So
yeah, I studied CIMA, the traditional route, a few years ago, and it was tough going. I said goodbye to my weekends.
It's great to hear people still do get the opportunity to live a semi-normal life when obviously putting a lot of effort into attaining the professional qualification. The way it's structured and the way the process of completing it has changed. So people learn differently and they do it in a more bite-sized, iterative way as opposed to schedule maybe Wednesday nights and Saturdays and Sundays or whatever case may be. So it definitely does help. And in terms of the progression, so one of the biggest challenges for any professional body is around progression. So people progressing, being successful and getting through the qualification. How's that been with the students that have undertaken FLP?
Oh, it's been fantastic. So we've found that students progress through the qualification much more quickly. So traditionally we found it take 3 years plus maybe to get through CIMA, but some people are finishing it within 2.5 years. And although they're finishing it sooner, they're still retaining the key knowledge that you need to be successful within the job and also as an accountant. So really, really positive.
What's your view on the quality of the output, i.e. the quality of the person under FLP versus, for example, what you would have seen yourself coming out in your cohort? Because there has been questions about, well, you've changed the process, you've changed the assessment methodology and other factors. Does this make any less of an accountant in your view?
Definitely not, no. You're still studying for the same material. You still have to progress through each of the modules and learn the modules. In fact, back when I did CIMA a long time ago, it was 2-hour exams each kind of module without a strategic case study. And now I think having a strategic case study at the end of those modules is fantastic because it amalgamates everything you've learned at that particular level and then tests it in a practical way, which is much more like a real work environment rather than, just going through the theory. And I think it embeds it better. So I definitely think that doing FLP is the same in the way CIMA is structured now is a lot better.
And you mentioned earlier in the conversation about the benefits for you as an employer. If you could elaborate on a couple of the key points, like we often hear about the flexibility and the dashboard and the reporting. And have you noticed any other benefits as an employer in rolling out the program?
Because we only have one formal exam now, it allows people to take longer to study for that exam, which means that they're more likely to progress through that level. So it's made it a lot better from our perspective, as well as reduce the amount of time at the office doing work, which is important. And also, it's really easy to track someone's progress within FLP, so you can see how far they are through each module, if they've booked an exam for the case study or not. And that really helps with performance reviews and seeing where people are in terms of their ability and what kind of projects we can put them on. So having that traceability and figuring out where people are, I think is really key.
Yeah, and it's real time as well. So when you need to make a decision based on someone's competencies, what they've learned, what they've passed, how they're performing, it's all there in front of you on your laptop or your PC.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a new thing that FLP has brought to the employer, and that has been one of the most attractive things to most employers. And obviously when you're dealing with less exam events, there's less administration for you as a business and for the student. So there's less, I guess, points of purchase, because one of the things about doing CIMA and any professional qualification is there's a number of decision points to buy an exam, to pay for an exam, to buy tuition. So the more decision points and payment points you bring into a process is obviously more administration. So that's all gone because of a subscription model.
Yeah, it's definitely simplified the scheduling of exams. And also, it's a bit of a commitment as well, because you're signing up to a subscription, like you say, and less admin involved, but you've also committed yourself then to try and complete this within a certain amount of years.
That's a very true thing. The financial upfront payment does incentivize people a lot more than a bit-by-bit payment cycle, because the very nature of human beings, procrastination is the biggest enemy. So you do find a lot of students maybe do 1 or 2 exams and then they dwindle away for a period of time due to personal circumstances, and they come back, they do another bit. And this actually encourages people to keep a higher cadence in terms of study and progression, which is, at the end of it, the best thing you could possibly do, because the longer you procrastinate or the longer you take, the more chances of failure or dropout can occur. It's just the challenges of professional qualifications. Finally, one area that is always of interest to me is you have delivered this and offered it to your employees, which is fantastic, but is there anything that you would have changed or any lessons learned that you would share that any other employer or student might find useful?
I suppose there's more guidance to the students. Make sure you have plenty of time to practice the case studies and you do as many examples as possible coming up to those exams while you're studying. Quite a lot of the feedback that we've got around the case study exams is that the key to passing that exam is once you've learned the material, look at as many case studies as possible and try and apply what you've learned to the case study. So I think that's key.
Yeah, so practice makes perfect, really, the old cliche.
Yeah.
Obviously, as part of the case study review course, we have a number of mock exams. Some are graded, some are non-graded, but we always encourage as many students as possible that will listen to us in every media possible. That the more time you spend on the case study and the more practice you have in terms of technique, question writing and various other things, the more chances of success. There's a direct correlation between the two. So it's an extremely important point to enforce yet again, because listeners will be obviously acutely aware. I've mentioned this many, many times, that the mock exams, the pre-seen material and the full analysis of that, the more you do of that, the more the scenarios that are likely to occur in the case study that you will have covered. And subsequently, the chances of passing the exam increase dramatically. But that's been an interesting conversation. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on to the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
So there's plenty more to explore about this topic on podcasts from the past, and we'll have some show notes and all the resources that are directly linked to FLP. Simply click on the episode's info icon in the podcast app on your smartphone or tablet, or open the episode in your computer's web browser. You'll find all the information right there. For more FLP information, go to enroll.cgma.org. Thanks again to Will, and of course, thank you for listening. If you know a friend or colleague who could use this information, feel free to share it with your networks. Keep an ear out for our next podcast in a few weeks, and I wish you a very good day. Goodbye.
This content is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the AICPA, the Association, or CIMA. It is provided with the understanding that they are not engaged in offering legal, accounting, or other professional services. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The AICPA, the Association, and CIMA make no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to, and assume no responsibility for, the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use of, reference to, or reliance on such material.